The country that achieves quantum supremacy first will rule the world. All the passwords, all the encryption are now gone. You have gained supremacy. In other words, the other side has lost sovereignty.
What is Naoris Protocol?
Our focus is very much on infrastructure trust, resiliency, and security. Naoris Protocol is a decentralized post-quantum validated system. We turn every device into a security validator. There's actually 1 million devices that you need to break in order to break our distributed proof of security consensus. And we extend this into blockchains. Bitcoin is using cryptography from the 80s. Every current encrypted data using current means that are not quantum resilient, it's a breach waiting to happen in the future.
You have all of these NATO generals as advisors, and I can start to see how serious this problem is.
These topics are conversations at board level that are extremely strategic.
Will quantum computers make AI research go faster?
It's going to be a revolution within a revolution. You can potentially have a singularity event.
David, what's next?
I see a world where people are aware of the risk to themselves. Countries are taking actionable steps towards their own safety, their own protection, and all of that, I see it backed by a Naoris Protocol-based technology. This is the only future.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is David Carvalho, the cybersecurity pioneer, ethical hacker, and deep tech innovator. You have over 2 decades of experience defending critical systems across governments, defense, finance, and infrastructure, and have advised NATO-aligned initiatives, national security programs, and Fortune 500 companies on cyber warfare, AI integrity, and digital sovereignty. You are the founder, CEO, and chief scientist of Naoris Protocol, the world's first decentralized, post-quantum secure cybersecurity mesh, and you are laying the foundation for a new era of digital trust. Your protocol transforms every device into a validator of security, enabling swarm-based AI and real-time verification at global scale. Today, you're not just introducing a new blockchain, you're building the security backbone for the next generation of smart cities, national infrastructure, and AI systems. And your soon-to-be issued Naoris utility token will power the first truly scalable, real-world cyber mesh. David, welcome to London Real.
My pleasure, Ryan. Thank you.
Hey, I want to start by saying that Naoris Protocol is one of our portfolio companies here at London Real Ventures, the world's first media-powered investment firm, where our mission is to transform the world by investing in cutting-edge Web3 and AI companies, while giving our partners marketing exposure across the London Real media platforms and academies. We heighten awareness, create customers, and build communities by leveraging our global audience and extensive network. David, we are super excited to be part of this journey with you. So let's jump in. What is Naoris Protocol?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So Naoris Protocol is the world's first hyperstructure of Web3. So the internet is a collection of different protocols. Web3 right now is a collection of protocols that do the same thing. But what we believe that the internet is going to transform. And you're going to have different protocols that actually apply to different use cases. And our focus is very much on infrastructure trust, resiliency, and security. So Naoris Protocol is, as its core, a decentralized post-quantum validated system that allows for every application, every system in the world to prove that it is on a trusted state as it operates under post-quantum fingerprints, validated by all the other devices. So the more devices that participate, the more resilient it gets exponentially, which is pretty much the opposite of how it works right now in the world, where every device is a single point of failure. And we extend this both to infrastructure, what we call sub-zero layer, and also, so that means the real world, every device becomes decentralized, and also into blockchains through validation at post-quantum level of transactions and making them resilient to Q-Day into the future.
You know, David, you keep saying this term post-quantum, and we've all heard that one day quantum computers are going to break all of our security, from our passwords on websites to all the cryptography that keeps our Bitcoin safe and our Ethereum safe. You know, every week we seem to hear that, you know, Google's coming up with a new quantum computer, and then we hear maybe the Chinese have one, and then some people say it's not happening for 10 years, and some people said it's 10 months away. What can you tell us about the quantum computer threat? How real is it? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're trying to build a solution to where that's not going to be an issue for a lot of these things.
Exactly. So, you know, looking forward into the future, we need to be future ready. Yes, quantum computers are real. They're a real thing. And there's constant breakthroughs, even on a weekly basis. It is an engineering problem. So if you throw enough people at it and enough money at it, just like, for example, China is doing, you're going to crack it. Just like it was hard when we put the man on the moon, but it was an engineering problem, right? So right now, that is, I would say, probably the biggest threat to stability and cybersecurity as we know it. Brian, we are witnessing the end of cybersecurity as we know it right now, slowly. Quantum is going to come to all cryptography that backs the world. It doesn't matter if it's nuclear secrets or blockchains, like the meteor has come for the dinosaurs. And it is our opportunity to actually become quantum resilient right now, because there are massive operations in place right now to actually do what's called harvest now, decrypt later. So the data is being harvested, kept in cold storage by governments, by other entities, and this is encrypted data. So every current encrypted data using current means that are not quantum resilient, it's a breach waiting to happen in the future. So we need to make it post-quantum or quantum resilient or quantum safe, which is the same thing right now, so that we can protect our future.
Wow. Okay, so there's kind of like, you know, some type of a web crawler right now that's crawling all of the current security and encryption, and it's kind of saving all that information. So at some point in the future, when the quantum computer comes, it can crack it immediately. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And right now, every digital system in the world is one door for hackers to break, is a single point of failure to all the systems that are connected to it, right? And that's true for hardware, for software applications, it doesn't matter, right? Now, that's nobody's fault. It is just how the internet was done or made. However, as the world expands and we get to 50 billion IoT devices, et cetera, that just becomes impossible to manage. And the more complexity you have, the more risk you have. So this is pretty much a mind-blowing stat, but a breach happens at every 11 seconds. And it happens because of centralization. It happens because of the single point of failure, right? So we turn every device into a security validator. So imagine if we have, for example, 1 million nodes, which we have right now, there's actually 1 million devices that you need to break in order to break our distributed proof of security consensus. in order for you to attack a single one. And so this is how we see the future. This is what actually got us working with a number of former NATO leaders under very highly resilient environments and objectives into the future. And post-quantum backbones for this was non-negotiable. So these environments are strategic in nature. And for them, bringing blockchain together with post-quantum capability in the most mature areas in AI and cybersecurity is just the only way for us to actually be able to have a trustable and resilient future.
You know, one of the things that really impressed us when we spoke to you originally before we invested was you have all of these NATO generals as advisors. Now, we've been investing for about 4 years, David, but I've never, ever had a pitch where you have not just one, but a whole lineup of NATO generals. And I was a bit shocked, and but also I was impressed. And I can start to see how serious this problem is. It's not just about protecting your password on Google or even protecting your Bitcoin. It's really about like global national security. And it's something the military, correct me if I'm wrong, has been thinking about probably for the last 10 years. Can you talk about, you know, your alliance with those generals, why it's important, and maybe why they've been thinking about this before the rest of us?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So yes, it is. So in such environments, so environments related to defense and national security, critical infrastructure, GovTech, highly critical environments like that, also highly regulated spaces. I would include, for example, banking and trading floors, etc. These topics are board level topics, so they are conversations at board level that are extremely strategic. And then there are other environments that are responsible for, the survivability of society, namely defense, right? So such environments are quite aware of the risk for society. So if there is a quantum attack, for example, against the power grid, say in the United States, that would lead to, potentially 60% of the people in big cities dying after a short amount of time because everything stops. Right? It's incredible what happens when everything stops. I was actually on a flight in Europe from Norway to Portugal when there was the big blackout recently in the Iberian Peninsula, and for about 2 days there was no power, and it was pretty much similar to a zombie apocalypse. There is nobody knows what to do. Nothing works. The phones don't work. You can't call an Uber. Everybody's stuck. The trains don't move. You can't call your loved ones. You don't know if people are flying or if their planes landed in a place or in another place, so on and so forth. It's very disturbing. There's no water in the faucet, right? So a quantum level attack allows for a level of supremacy and access that is completely, it's something that nobody has ever seen, right? But it's something that people in that space are quite aware, right? So I'm going to give you a quote, but the country that achieves quantum supremacy first will rule the world. This is a quote by Vladimir Putin. And there's similar quotes on both sides of the Atlantic. And the focus on such technologies is such that, for example, the Chinese government has been investing more in quantum technology than they have invested, for example, the last years in their nuclear program. And that tells you how strategic this technology is for supremacy. Because once you have access to quantum supremacy, all the passwords, all the encryption, all the things that are protecting things that matter or that should be secret are now gone. You have gained supremacy. In other words, the other side has lost sovereignty. So this is how important it is to actually mitigate this risk, because it is a survivability risk. And these environments live under the umbrella of strategy, and there's nothing more strategic in our lifetimes than actually mitigating for a complete collapse of authenticated access, which is what quantum will allow for.
In some ways, David, is quantum, or the race for quantum, more important than the race for AI? Yes,
it's much bigger than that. It's much bigger than AI. AI just happens to be the shiny object right now, because there is a lot of connection that you can have with it, right? Even though it's fake, it's not a real thing. But AI can actually run on top of quantum, and quantum will unlock different levels of AI, even potentially, other levels of AI supremacy. And AI will lead, I am sure, the quantum threat. So if you have access to, good AI capabilities from an offensive perspective, and you are also backed by quantum computing capabilities in a way that can break, any secrets that are on the other side, you pretty much become unstoppable. And that would be the biggest upset to global order that we would have in our lifetimes, or maybe ever.
Yeah, because it's like if one nation got a slightly better AI, you can see that they have an advantage. But if one nation has quantum, it, like you said, it's almost like they can break everything and blow everybody away.
That's right. So the vision for Naoris Protocol initially was to take away the single point of failure from existing environments. So the more complex it gets, the easier it is to get into, because there's more entry points, right? It's the centralization issue. So by decentralizing the approach, you actually add resiliency. But the post-quantum part of it actually allows for for you to prove that whatever you're seeing on your screen, for example, about a remote system, is actually true, right? And it also allows you to prove that your data is in a trusted state and your systems are in a trusted state. Because if something happens to them because there's something gets exploited or there's a malicious access, you probably would never know. And there would be probably an infinity of ways to stop you from knowing, because everything is a point of failure and there's nobody watching the watchers. So the whole blockchain ecosystem, principle, let's say, or backbone, backed by a quantum validation sphere, allows you to know that what you're seeing is actually true, because the proof is at quantum level. So it's resilient to attackers tampering with it and telling you that there's nothing to see here, right? Because that's the first thing that happens in an attack. After persistence, the attacker stays there and starts changing what appears to be reality, and you cannot trust anything that you can see in any system anymore. And that's true even when you, for example, talk to people that participate in, for example, NATO cyber war games and things like that. The biggest issue they have is actually not defense. The biggest issue they have is truth. What is actually real, right? And there's this quote, when a conflict starts, the first thing that dies is truth.
Yeah. It's fascinating because we've seen that recently with conflicts around the world, right? There's the version of what happened, then there's what really happened, and we really don't know. And sometimes the story of what happened is more important than what actually happened. And sometimes we're never going to find out what actually happened. And yeah, I guess truth is the first casualty of war, or something like that. It's interesting that you mentioned decentralization, because a lot of people go into the blockchain for different reasons. Maybe they want the public ledger, maybe they want the immutability, but it sounds like the decentralized nature of blockchain is the very reason that Naoris is built on that, because you need to not have that single point of failure. Can you speak a little more on why you've been building on the blockchain for so long?
Right. So, blockchain is moving beyond to transform, business part time. Value comes from utility, not from speculation. And right now, the environment that we have in Web3 is generally speculative. There is a big transition, I believe, right now in this cycle towards real world use cases, and use cases that don't just fit within the bubble of blockchain. So in our case, one of the biggest mandates that we had from former NATO leaders was actually to create a blockchain backbone that could be used, between nation states, that will increase the resiliency of interoperable systems. So, for example, if a country gets, a system in a country gets hijacked, and say a smart city environment, like, for example, a water treatment plant gets the wrong mixture, it can lead to deaths. Could be a terrorist attack, for example. Normally, there would be no kind of like immune system present. So, for example, another country, say if this happened in Italy, in Ireland, there would be no capability to deal with this instantly. There would be probably kind of like some research about this, and maybe 6 months after the attack was done, there would be some kind of post-mortem analysis, and then maybe there will be some upgrades across the board. But if all these systems are actually connected under a decentralized cyber-physical resilience mesh, which is what Naoris Protocol creates, automatically that intelligence about the risk and what's happening pretty much in a live setting is going to enable another city, for example, in a different country that is not even connected to the same network, but it is connected to the chain to be instantly protected against this sort of threat and hardened, right? So it's a completely different way of how you think about risk.
What the London Real Investment Club actually does for you, it gives you the keys to open that door to the inside deals. In the last 3 weeks, I've participated in 3 incredible deals: a layer 2 Bitcoin protocol, an incredible AI protocol. The deal flow is beyond what I expected. I don't think I've ever seen a model like this that just gives average folks the opportunity to be behind the deals, and that's exactly what we've done. Not only that, you get to hang out with Brian Rose every week, and for me, that was huge because I look at Brian as somebody who's not only an expert in the space, and I think is on the leading edge, but just the leading edge of thought with London Real and the work he's doing there. To anyone who's taking a serious look at this, I know it's a big decision. It was a big decision for me and my family, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I wish you all the best and hope you come join us.
Another example would be that is actually possible because of blockchain and decentralization, and that allows for real world problems to be solved. Is, say, for example, if you're a bank and you have, say, 40 million clients, they're both your biggest source of wealth, and they're also your biggest source of risk, because people are clicking on malicious links, maybe putting their credentials on websites. And under Naoris Protocol, all those people can actually be an army that are not just defending the bank, but are defending each other from their pockets, right? And if one of the applications on your phone is tampered with, then the bank and the other people are not going to agree under the consensus that we have created, decentralized proof security, that we have created under the leadership of former NATO leaders, that they're not going to agree that that is in a trusted state. Therefore, you will not be able to make a transaction. So it opens, if you think about this, it's extremely powerful principle. It opens a whole new avenue of utility and use cases for blockchain-backed validations that don't just get limited by making transactions of cryptocurrency or signing a smart contract. It will be actually about validating that systems, applications, data processes, data streams are actually in a trusted state as they operate. The same thing for AIs and AI models. Say, for example, right now, talking very simply about, for example, OpenAI, if you go to ChatGPT and ask a question, you have no idea that the answer you're getting is actually to the question you asked. You don't know if that was changed in transit or modified. You don't know if your question actually got to the server in the same way. You don't know if the answer was modified before you got it. You don't know if the model is in a trusted state or not when you operate it. You don't know if it has been tampered with or if it has been hacked. You don't know if the source of data has been tampered by an external government to change your opinion. You don't know if it's coming from a trusted service in a trusted server, and if the data has been changed in transit, right? You don't know if the model was in a trusted state as it trained. So these are all immense challenges that actually countries, just aligned with our advisors, as you said, and also team members that are nation state leaders and defense leaders are very aware. The objective to generate trust is probably the most important area, and Web3, in my view, needs to be the backbone of infrastructure. Trust is at the baseline of this in general for all sorts of use cases in society. Right. There is 2030 objectives that most countries have, and all of them include advanced objectives like quantum cryptography or post-quantum cryptography, and assurance and security, decentralized security, trusted or sovereign AI systems, etc. I'm not sure if you're aware, but NVIDIA just last week announced that they were going to pivot from actually making chips in order to start operating in the sovereign and trusted AI space. So that is something that is very, very close to us, and that we're working very, very closely with countries, and that we have the capability to do. And that's one of the byproducts of Naoris Protocol utility, to create this kind of like, unhackable, always on infrastructure.
It's fascinating that NVIDIA decided to pivot. And I'm guessing, and tell me if I'm wrong, David, it's because they see what you've just talked about, this proof of security, as just as important or maybe more important than the hardware itself. Because you could have the fastest hardware, the greatest AI, but if you can't trust it, then it's not only worthless, it's actually dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. You can have all the data in the world. You can have the best hardware in the world. But if you can't trust the source, and there's no way for you to prove that you can trust the source and the data itself, then you're probably not going to be making good decisions, and you're probably going to be manipulated, right? So that's one of the big parts of sovereignty around quantum resilience, right? That's where there is an opportunity that appears that wasn't there to actually tamper with all that is supposed to be real. And as you know, we get most of our information in first, second, or third hand through our mobile devices, be it laptops or phones or etc. So reality is what we receive, is not necessarily what is sent or created. Now we are creating a way to prove that actually reality was created in a trusted place by a trusted party, and it's received in a trusted way. And this changes everything.
And you call this DepoSec, this decentralized proof of security. That's one of your creations. Is that right?
That's correct. So DepoSec is the decentralized proof of security consensus mechanism that's backed by post-quantum fingerprints and post-quantum transactions on chain. It's all about you having trust over the truth that you're looking at. I would say it doesn't matter how many times I talk about such topics with people that are in these highly critical spaces. This is the only future. Like, decentralized security is the only viable future. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to have more and more risk and more complexity. That's just going to become more and more expensive and lead to more and more risks and more opportunities for entry points, etc. So the need for decentralized security is so obvious. It's like asking if we need the internet back in 1990. It's not an option. It's evolution, just like quantum cryptography and post-quantum and quantum supremacy is inevitable, right? It's like death. It's going to happen. So we just need to be ready for it.
Wow. You've used this term like cybersecurity mesh. I've never really heard that term used before. What does that mean?
So cybersecurity mesh, or decentralized cybersecurity mesh, is a technology that we have created. So it's a term that we have coined. It's what happens when you connect a lot of sovereign systems that are in a provenly trusted state. And that can include blockchain validators, right? Because right now, none of them are in a trusted state. Unfortunately, the only thing they need to operate is to have some tokens and be online, which is something that needs to be upgraded in general in Web3. And that is going to become a risk for everything from Bitcoin to any other crypto. So the resiliency of these spaces needs to be increased from the infrastructure level all the way to transaction level for various reasons. But this is also transversally true across the world. So we have created DepoSec as one of the fundamental technologies aligned with other technologies that we have created, like decentralized identity validation authority, like DIVA. That's called DIVA, where we can actually identify uniquely each system and prove they are who they say they are at Web3 level, using the blockchain, not using any means that will allow for them to be attacked or tampered with, like, for example, IPs or MAC addresses or emails for phones, or etc. So the objective is to create an anonymous and agnostic mesh that the more it grows, the more trustworthy it becomes, and the more resilient it becomes from a perspective of tampering. So it's pretty much the opposite of how the internet has been set up. So we look at this as the first protocol of Web3 for the real world. So something that, when you have tens of millions of devices connected, and as humanity expands and goes into the moon, into Mars, and in other areas of space, all these systems are actually connected in a mesh. It doesn't really matter if they are on Earth or in space. They're all protecting each other, and they're not point of failure anymore. And that will allow us to achieve our bigger objectives. Otherwise, we're just busy trying to manage this.
Okay. Michael Saylor has been asked about the quantum threat to Bitcoin, and because he owns a lot of it, right? 600,000 plus Bitcoin. And he said that in the future, that the chain will just upgrade when that solution exists. And I'm wondering if he's already thinking about something like Naoris Protocol that can upgrade Bitcoin, because he's literally said that. He said, well, when that problem comes, we'll find the solution and bake that into the way that Bitcoin works. Is he already talking to you guys?
No, not yet. But I've actually written about that, I believe, in Forbes and in other environments, exactly about that comment. Bitcoin is technology that is using cryptography from the 80s. How can I say, if we think exactly like that, and expect some magical change to happen, then we're just slowly moving into obsolescence. So right now, I would say the most important point would be to find ways that don't need a hard fork towards Bitcoin, because that would be very hard. All the transactions since the beginning would have to be remade. All the wallets would have to be remade, because the cryptography is not compatible. Post-quantum cryptography and traditional cryptography or elliptic curve-based cryptography are not compatible technologies. So the ideal approach is to find a way to solve, for example, transaction-based issues, where, for example, a quantum attack against an already signed hash that is being broadcasted in the network that's public can lead to the breaking of the double spend guarantees that blockchain provides, and the immutability as well, in changing, for example, the amount of the transaction or the destination in a way that bypasses consensus mechanisms, which are really the backbone of blockchains right now. So these are risks that I've actually written extensively about, and also other researchers have. And it is a survivability risk. As I mentioned before, quantum is coming to Bitcoin and all cryptography in the world. It doesn't matter if it's in the healthcare context or in government context or in crypto context, like the meteor has come for the dinosaurs. And it is our opportunity now to actually do something about it, become quantum resilient now, so that we can be resilient to this as soon as that happens, or already resilient. Once Q day happens, that's already too late. You already lost. You cannot go back, right? So just like if you are, say, in an airplane and somebody would tell you, oh, there's 5% probability that this parachute is not going to open if you jump. Well, yeah, it's 5%, but you're going to jump? No, you're not. So that is the situation we're in right now. And these 5% are increasing every week, I would say.
How close do you think we are, David, to that quantum computer that can start to break basic levels of cryptography?
Well, through Naoris Protocol, we have access to a number of agencies. I cannot discuss exactly, but let's just say that there is a very big awareness that in certain regions of the world, there's constant breakthroughs towards that Q day. But that's actually not the focus in their case. I can give you some example. For example, in the US, there has been a government mandate for all businesses to be quantum resilient by 2028. However, that's what's said publicly. In reality, they understand the risk is a lot closer than that, but in private. However, the biggest risk is not necessarily when a quantum supremacy event is going to happen, because if that happens, there is a high probability that the threat actor will go undetected for the longest time and things just look like normal hacks, right? And they will never reveal that they actually have that capability, because that's their biggest advantage. And they will just keep hoarding and hoarding data and intellectual property and so on, right? So that might not happen for, like, for example, a year, while that actually already happened. So that's like a global rug pull on anything that actually matters, right? And that would be too late already. I would say the biggest risk that everybody's aware of is what's called the harvest now, decrypt later problem. So as every transaction that you make, every time you expose your keys to the internet, etc., they're an encrypted state that is vulnerable to quantum computers. This is being harvested. And this is being harvested for all sorts of use cases, not just on blockchain, for cyber espionage use cases, cyber terrorism use cases, and many other things. And once that's harvested, it's in cold storage somewhere, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just waiting to be decrypted. So it's a little bit like, when you have in the Terminator movie the T-800 going back in time, so Schwarzenegger going back in time to protect the future. In order for you to protect your future, you need to be post-resilient now, post-quantum resilient now, right? That is the thing that is in everybody's mind at the moment, and that CEOs of Google, NSA, so on and so forth, have been speaking about very heavily in the last year.
Yeah, you're basically creating attack vectors every single day because you're not post-quantum compliant. And even though it's not here yet, you're basically leaving yourself open, right, with these data points that it can come back and attack later. It's heavy stuff. Quickly, David, how do you explain quantum computing to your grandma? Or how do you explain it to a 7-year-old when people say, okay, yeah, but I don't understand what is it? And maybe they don't need to understand exactly what it is, but how do you try to explain it to people? Because I think most people don't really get it.
Right. So that normally starts by explaining what's the difference between traditional encryption and what happens, why it's so resilient, and why quantum computers can break it. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have eggs that are dyed, right? And you want to make an omelet. And let's say you have 256 eggs, and they all have different colors, right? And you choose, 6 eggs, and you make an omelet, right? Once you make an omelet, you'll probably end up with a color that's some kind of like brown or something. And it's really hard for you to say which eggs went into the omelet, right? To make that specific color. So you'd have to try all possible colors, and you would have to try all possible options. And that's really what happens right now with cryptography. So computers, they work in a sequential manner. So they try they give it one try, they give it another try, until they eventually get to the, for example, to the right password, right? So the password in this case would be the right sequence of eggs. With quantum computers, that's not an issue. So if you have, for example, 256 qubits, you could actually, reverse engineer all omelets at the same time for all use cases. So for all colors. So you wouldn't have to do all the tries that traditionally you would have to do. So that's why with the quantum computer, you can actually achieve calculations that would take, for example, a septillion years with all the computing power on Earth to achieve, because quantum computers can do operations in parallel, while traditional computers can only do operations in sequence. So what you're doing is you're having a much bigger computational capability that is really good at calculating. So it's like a giant calculator. You're not going to be running Need for Speed or Outlook in any quantum computer anytime soon, but they are really good at making calculations. And unfortunately, all the cryptography we have created until now is extremely vulnerable to that. However, quantum resilient cryptography or quantum safe or post-quantum cryptography is done in a way that the mathematics are actually very hard for quantum computers to deal with.
Okay. And will quantum computers make AI research go faster, or is that a different type of computing?
So there's certain areas of AI and computation that quantum computers can help with for now. And I think we'll see more and more of this that will accelerate massively certain areas of AI. For example, number crunching. Think about, for example, molecular biology, drug discovery, and the same thing around pathogen discovery and the other side of the coin, because every technology has dual use. So yes, it's going to be a revolution within a revolution. So quantum is going to supercharge AI to a point where, well, it is already very hard to manage and you don't really know what's happening within it. But to a point where you can potentially have a singularity event. And that kind of scares me quite a bit because there is absolutely no trust around AI. There is no trusted AI systems. We are very focused in helping create that. But you actually cannot right now really know why AI gives you a certain answer or another answer. So that is just going to become a lot more complex, and it will allow for AI algorithms.
How do you get out of a rat race? How do you create wealth not only for yourself, but also for the generations to come after?
I am absolutely amazed with the quality of companies that we're getting exposure to.
We go on to Zoom calls with the innovators and the folks who are building new applications in metaverse, blockchain, artificial intelligence, decentralized finance.
What's going on, everybody? Thumbs up if you can see me.
We are focusing on early stage investment.
And the quality of people that we're getting exposure to, whether it be Dan Tapiero with 1RT, Jason Ma from Open, Yatsu from Animoca.
It's been a phenomenal experience thus far. It has far exceeded my expectations.
We are focusing on cutting edge technologies.
I view it now as the best investment I've ever made. The upside I view is unlimited.
And as a retail investor, I would never get this exposure anywhere else outside of Investment Club.
See you in the Investment Club.
Algorithms and mechanisms to create better models of themselves recursively, potentially to a point where it will be exponentially better in exponentially shorter amounts of time, and we have lost all control. I am very negative about that, I have to say, and I will continue to be. So it's going to be, I would say, extremely important for world leaders to be aware of that and to be aware of how important it is to create trusted, validated mechanisms and baselines for artificial intelligence, especially in the context of quantum chips, which they are currently available.
Yeah, it's a scary scenario. You know, we were around in 2020 and we were kind of getting censored for some of our messages, David. But back then, you know, you would see a message and then you wouldn't see, for example, our videos. But still, as a human, you could still kind of make your own decisions. Whereas if that all happened again today or next year or the year after that, the AI would just tell you the answer, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have to think, oh, I believe that guy, I don't believe that guy, where is that guy? It would just tell you the answer. And these days, I think so many people are now just trusting whatever spits out of this centralized AI. And it actually makes it even more dangerous because the human is getting to be trusting so much. And like you said, they're never going to know if it's secure, and even if it is secure, where the data came from. And it's potentially an even more dangerous scenario than what we saw in 2020.
That's right. You don't know where it comes from. You don't know if it's trustworthy. You don't know if the systems you're getting it from have been compromised or not, or if the data has been tampered with. These are absolute gaps that need to be filled in AI for us to actually use it for more real use cases instead of just mundane operations, which they are being integrated right now at government level, at military level, so on and so forth. And this is not only about transparency, and it's also about freedom, right? And because I think it's very easy for all of us to imagine that if there is no transparency and no provable trust around every AI mechanism and source of data and source of truth.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.